Well, hello there, Mount Zion. I am Pastor Katina Parrish Clark, Associate Pastor of Congregational Care here at the Mount Zion Baptist Church. We have landed in the month of May, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, you all know that this month is near and dear to our hearts, as it also is to God's, because we know that God is equally concerned about our mental health as He is about our spiritual and physical health. And so on today, we thank you for joining us at another Deeper Dive series. All month during our Deeper Dive series, we're going to focus on various topics that can have a tremendous impact on our mental health. This year's Minding Our Mental Health series will cover 5 topics. Those topics include the stigma's broken, now what? We'll also include anxiety and depression, identifying and addressing them, substance abuse and its ties to mental health, and then of course we're going to talk about grief. Grief, it's unavoidable but not untreatable. And then the last week we're going to cover employee stress and burnout. We invite you to join in each week as a variety of licensed counselors and therapists delve into these topics to help us become better at minding our mental health. Mount Zion, we thank God for you joining us on today. And because we know God has been just as good to you as He has been to us, we want to extend the opportunity for you to sow into this ministry. So please give in the measure and manner in which God leads you, for we all know that God does love a cheerful giver. Well, I hope you're ready like I am to take this deeper dive with us into minding our mental health. Get ready, let's go.
Hello, good people. I'm Kevilynn Gatson, licensed professional counselor, mental health service provider, and certified transformation coach. I am the owner of Reflections Counseling Group here in Nashville, Tennessee. I am excited for the opportunity to share this message with you about a topic that touches each and every one of us, and that is grief. In a world where pain is often seen as something to be avoided or quickly overcome, I come to affirm one simple truth for you, and that is that grief is unavoidable, but it is not untreatable. Early on in my career, I said that I would never do grief work because it was something that I just frankly was not comfortable with. But I quickly realized that most of my clients come into session with some form of grief, and that grief touches everyone. And I had to learn to be comfortable with assisting my clients as they navigate through it. It was not until I personally experienced the depths of the emotional pain of grief that I understood this concept in its fullness. Of course, I had textbook knowledge, but the personal knowing gave it all a different meaning for me. The loss of a parent is a pain that like no other. I dealt with intense emotional and physical pain due to this loss. I tried everything that you could think of to try to feel better. It took me a while to realize I was trying to rush the grief away rather than embrace what the grief truly was for me. Slowing down to really deal with the grief was a game changer for me and can be for you as well. Today, we will walk through several commonalities of the grief experience, symptoms, and treatment options. But no, ultimately, this is an individual process in which you must understand your grief and how you navigate it in a way that is going to be healing for you. So grab pen and paper and write down a few things with me as I share this information with you. So I liken life to a garden in full bloom and is vibrant with colors and life. Even in the garden of abundance and beauty, there are moments when flowers fade and leaves wither and branches break. In those moments, we witness the inevitable cycle of life and death, of growth and loss. Just as with grief, it's an integral part of the human experience, a natural response to the ebb and flows of life. If you know anything about gardening, you also know that you have to get rid of the weeds or they will cause harm to the other plants in the garden. Think about what weeds you have in your garden. I want you to jot those down. Grief comes in many forms. Most common we think of is the loss of a loved one and the end of a relationship, but it is also the closing of a chapter in your lives. So it could be any life transition, graduation, having a baby, getting married. So think about some of the things that you're grieving and jot those down as well. Grief truly is a journey through the depths of our emotions, a process of mourning and remembrance. It's a state of heavy and constant reflection of self, the people, the places, and the things in our lives. Yet, in our society, grief is often seen as a problem to be solved rather than a journey to be embraced. We live in a culture that values productivity and positivity above all else, that views grief as a sign of weakness or failure. Oftentimes, our society seeks to avoid pain at all costs and views grief as something to be overcome quickly or even ignored. But the truth is, when we deny and suppress our grief, we push it away or pretend it doesn't exist, we only prolong our suffering. When we refuse to acknowledge its presence, it festers within us like an unhealed wound, poisoning our hearts and our souls. Grief, when acknowledged and embraced, has the power to transform us. It teaches us the value of love, of connection, of the preciousness of life itself. It deepens our empathy, our compassion for ourselves and for others. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are part of a community of fellow humans journeying together through the joys and sorrows of life. Because we all know life be lifing. Truly accepting that you are human and you will experience a wide range of emotions throughout your lifetime is key. Knowing that your emotions exist on a spectrum, even what we deem as a negative or bad emotion has opportunity to be used for our benefit. I encourage you to shift your perspective of all emotions. Ask yourself, how can I benefit from this emotion? What do I need to shift where I am with this emotion, especially if you don't like it? I know being unbothered is the new trend, but it is often misunderstood. Being unbothered does not mean that you don't care about things or that you will not have a reaction to things. It means that you have learned emotion regulation and you are able to withstand heavy emotions and allow your body to process and release them. It is the art of being steadfast and grounded and having the wisdom to rest, reset, and recalibrate when needed. Being unbothered does not come with ego. It is the full submission to what is. It is the understanding that acceptance is not a stopping point, but a call to action. Once we accept what is, we have decisions to make. You have a choice. You have a choice to become stagnant. You have a choice to move forward. You have a choice to rest and sit with it for a while. You have a choice. And when you make a choice, you then have to create a plan of action steps to implement that choice. So I ask you, what choices have you made? Are you ready or do you need to make another choice? What are your action steps? I know you're saying, yeah, that sounds all well and good, lady. You're so inspiring. But what does that mean? What do I do? It's actually the number one question that I get. What do I do about it? How do we navigate and journey through grief? Well, to be honest, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question. But there are certain principles and strategies that can guide you on your way. So first and foremost, we must give ourselves permission to grieve. Psalms 126:5 says, "They that sow in tears shall reap in joy." We must allow ourselves to feel the full range of emotions that come with loss, the sadness, the anger, the confusion. We must create space for our grief, whether it's through prayer, meditation, or simply sitting in silence. For some of us, we have been groomed to suppress and ignore our emotions. We've all heard it time and time again. I don't have time for those tears. I can't slow down. I have kids. I have work. I have bills to pay. I have a business to run. I have people depending on me. I simply got things to do. We have mastered the art of pushing and plowing through life instead of actually living it. We are so concerned about controlling everything around us and within us that we don't allow ourselves to be fully immersed in the human experience, which is inclusive of feeling emotions and facing the unexpected. So allow yourself to grieve, whether it looks like laying in the bed and crying, whether it is engaging in holistic healing practices, whether it's talking to yourself, screaming, whatever you need to do to get it out in a healthy way, do it. So I ask, what does giving yourself permission to grieve look like? Jot it down for me. Secondly, we must seek support from others. We are not meant to walk this journey alone. Whether it be friends, family, a support group, or even a therapist, we need companionship of those who can walk alongside us, offering a listening ear and a comforting presence. This does not mean that you can't take moments to yourself to self-reflect, to release, and to restore. But know there is a difference between taking time to yourself and isolation. We all have something in us that is needed by another. There is power in connection. So the Bible says that two are better than one because they are good, because they have a good return on their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Indeed, the healing process will be hard, but you don't have to endure it alone. Sometimes simply acknowledging that you have a support system is utilizing your support system. Oftentimes, depression that comes with grief tells us that no one supports us, that no one is there for us, that no one cares about us, and that we lost everything when we lost that person, when we lost that job, when we lost that connection. But the truth is that you have to remind yourself of the people who are still present with you and who are willing to walk with you. So I ask you, who's in your support system? And how do they lend support to you? If you truly do not have a support system, how do you create a plan to get one? Because we've acknowledged that we must have people with us and we're not meant to walk this alone. So lastly, give yourself grace and space to heal and transform the pain of the loss to living a life that you love. One of the greatest gifts that we get from loss that teaches us how we want to live our lives. You will inevitably, through this journey, reassess and reevaluate your values and what is important to you. You find out what is worth your time, your attention, and your energy. You will gain a greater sense of discernment, and you will become stingy with your time because you want to ensure that you don't waste it. The value that you put on time shifts when you experience loss. So, how do you want to live life after loss? What does giving yourself grace and space to heal look like for you? All right, so are we stuck? That's okay. I got you. Let's look at some other options. This could be attending counseling, attending support groups, getting grief education, engaging in self-care practices, developing healthy coping skills, also leaning into your faith and spiritual practices. And it could also possibly be seeking out medication management services. It's important to remember that grief hits us all differently, and we have to be attentive to self to determine how to best navigate it. Also, having reasonable expectations for the journey. You will not be healed overnight. You will have some good days, but grief is not a linear process. However, having a bad day or a bad moment is not an indication of regression either. It's an indication that you still have love for what was lost. You will find ways on this journey to honor that. Grief is not cured in a traditional sense, but it is managed and can be treated. Since we have been taught to carry grief with us, some of us may not even recognize when it's showing up for us. Some things to look for is tearfulness, sadness, guilt, regret, and anxiety. And these emotions may come in waves and can fluctuate in intensity over time. You may also experience physical symptoms such as fatigue, insomnia, or excessive sleep, changes in appetite or weight, headaches, muscle tension, aches and pains, and dizziness, and even digestive issues. Some even have trouble concentrating and making decisions or remembering things. You can experience intrusive thoughts or memories related to the loss. Some may begin to withdraw or isolate. Many experience increased irritability and agitation or begin to engage in risky behaviors to cope. Some even question their spiritual beliefs and begin to feel a sense of doubt or anger towards their higher power, or feeling a sense of spiritual emptiness. Inevitably, grief is going to disrupt your life in some capacity. You don't have to wait until you can't handle it any longer to seek support. Make sure you find the help that you need and listen to the people around you when they notice and bring it to your attention. So, what are some of your symptoms for grief? And you can jot those down. If you have been experiencing any of these symptoms, tap into your resources. Contact your primary care physician. Check with your insurance carrier to see what therapists are in network with your plan. Ask your employer about the Employee Assistance Program to see what resources they have available to you at low or no cost. Utilize directories such as Psychology Today and Therapy for Black Girls to find therapists and psychiatrists in your area. Tap into support groups such as Grief Share and Divorce Care, and check out other healing practices such as massage therapy, healing touch, sound baths, somatic yoga, mindfulness, and meditation groups. There are resources that are available to you. What resources have you tapped into, and what resources are you interested and willing to try? Now, don't get me wrong, grief can be a bully. Grief does have those hands. It's really the Muhammad Ali of emotions, but you have the Spirit of God in you. We are not going down without a fight. You learn to bob and weave in the ring with the ring of life with grief. But really, you have the opportunity to decide how you want to handle your grief and not allow grief to handle you. Did you catch that? Who thinks of grief and thinks of opportunity? Not often do you see them used together, right? I've said it quite a few times today. But consider this. When I think of opportunity in the context of grief, I see it as an invitation of growth, of healing, of transformation. When I think of opportunity in the context of grief, I see it as an invitation for growth, healing, and transformation. Grief, despite its great and intense pain, presents us with the opportunities that we may not otherwise encounter. We have the opportunity of reflection. Typically, we're trucking along through life, doing what we do, and bam, we're hit in the chest by grief. Grief prompts us to reflect deeply on the meaning and the purpose of life. It urges us to examine our values, our priorities, and our relationships. Through this introspection, we may gain valuable insight into ourselves and to the world around us. This can happen in therapy, in conversation with friends and family, or in our alone time through journaling and meditation. We have the opportunity of connection. Grief has its way of pulling people apart, but it also has its way of bringing people together. It creates a space of vulnerability and empathy, fostering deep connections with others who share in our pain. In our darkest moments, we often find solace in the support and understanding of friends, family, and community. We have the opportunity for resilience. Grief tests our resilience in many ways we have never even imagined. It challenges us to summon the inner strength and courage to navigate through the storm. As we endure the pain and face the uncertainties of grief, we discover our capacity to persevere and to adapt in the face of adversity. We learn our weaknesses and the tender spots that we have, and we learn to maneuver with them. We learn our strengths and use those to push forward. We have opportunity for compassion. Through grief, we develop a heightened sense of compassion for ourselves and for others. We become more attuned to the struggles and suffering of those around us, offering empathy and support with open hearts. In reaching out to others in their time of need, we find purpose and meaning amidst our own pain. and you have to find purpose in the pain. And of course, you have the opportunity for growth. I love to say that grief and growth are favorite first cousins. Ultimately, grief offers us the opportunity for profound personal growth and transformation. It invites us to embrace change and to let go of what no longer serves us and step into a new way of being. As we journey through grief, we emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate individuals, ready to embrace life's joys and sorrows. While grief may cover us in darkness, it illuminates paths of opportunity to lead us towards healing and hope. It challenges us to embrace the full spectrum of humanity and to emerge from the depths of sorrow with a newfound strength and resilience. Grief is indeed unavoidable. It is an inescapable part of the human experience. It is not untreatable. As you are on your journey, may you find courage in the face of grief, wisdom to learn from it, and hope to see the joy that comes in the morning. And may you always remember that even in the midst of our deepest sorrows, you are held in the loving embrace of the one who knows your pain and carries you through. Keep loving, keep living, and keep knocking grief out. Take care of yourself and let others support you along the way.
What a dynamic reminder about something we all will have to endure. But isn't it good to know that though grief is unavoidable, it is not untreatable? Counselor Gatson reminded us on today that all grief journeys do not look the same. And some of us who experience loss may have to have some support to get to the joy God promised us on the other side of it. As your pastor, I want you to experience the healing for the brokenness grief can cause in your life. If you or someone you know is in need of a counselor or therapist in the Nashville or surrounding areas, you can make contact with Counselor Gatson at the email at the bottom of the screen, or go to the Mount Zion website at mtzionnashville.org to find local and non-local resources to get you connected to the help you need to navigate your grief journey in ways that are healthy.